Hi friends, I'm Cal Lily and I'm a necromancer in training who has been slacking. I'm really nervous because spring equinox is coming up and I should be finished with my novice training of becoming a necromancer. I'm not there, so mad dash scramble to try and get it finished before spring equinox. I do want to become a necromancer. I want to become the best necromancer there is. I just got a little sidetracked this last year, so let's see if we can get me back on track. Also, another thing I've been slacking on is my guild standing. So I want to check and see how well received I am by my guild. I'm part of the archivists and I feel like I just have been completely neglecting that. I don't really know what they think of me at the moment. I don't know if I've been contributing enough. And so I plan on going over that and seeing what my reputation looks like. So fingers crossed, it's not so bad. Okay, so last spring equinox, let's just figure out where my classes have been, what I have fulfilled, what I haven't. I took a shapeshifting course, Creature with Claws on Cover, and I read Sweet Thursday by John Steinbeck for that. So I finished that particular class. Animal Studies, I needed to read a quick read, and for that I read Fruits Basket Volume 4. It was a manga, so it was definitely a quick read. For Inscription, I had to read an intimidating read, and I read Works and Days in Theogony by Hesiod. That was an intimidating read for me because it was ancient Greek mythology. Didn't end up being as scary as I thought it was going to be. Spells and Incantations, short stories / essays. So for this one, my plans were to read Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. I'm in the process of reading this. I'm 77% of the way through. For Conjuration, I had to read a book that had a source of light on the cover. I read Weeping Tide by Amanda Foody for that. Restoration, I needed to read a book that featured healers, and I counted Cannery Row by John Steinbeck for that, even though Doc did not actually get a doctorate degree. He was the healer for the town. He was the person everybody went to when they were ill. Lore, a mythology-inspired book. I have not finished that course yet. I'm planning on reading Percy Jackson, The Lightning Thief, and I'm going to be starting that this week. And then finally, Demonology. I needed to read a book that had the word shadow in the title. I read Shadow of Night by Deborah Harkness. So only 2 books from last spring equinox, 1 year later. That's not so bad, right? I can do this, and one of them is 77% of the way through. So that's going to be fine. And the other one is middle grade. We'll be fine. It's great. It's good. Okay, so for the autumn equinox, I had to focus on specific course studies, and my courses that I was looking at were Animal Studies, Conjuration, Demonology, and Spells and Incantations. So for Animal Studies, I only had to get an O level, and the class was Study of Familiars, a book that had familiar or animal companions in it. And for that, I read Reflection by Elizabeth Lim, completed it. We're good on Animal Studies. Then for Demonology, I also had to get an O, and that was Imp Wrangling. I had to wrangle some imps, and for that I had to read a fantasy. So the book that I counted for that was Silverchair by C.S. Lewis. That was one of the Chronicles of Narnia books. And then Restoration was the other course that I only had to get an O in. For that, I had to do object restoration, so restoring specific objects. And for that, I needed to have a single object as a focus on the cover of the book. So I used Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller for that because there was that one helm on the cover of the book. Then we've got Conjuration, and for Conjuration I had to get all the way up to a level D. So for the O course, it was The Foundations of Necromancy, and that was a book with necromancy themes. So for that I read Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. Got that done quite a while ago. And the next Conjuration course, my Q course, was Tales the Bones Tell, which is a book that had bones on the cover or in the title. For that I read The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon, and that was when I just finished. And then finally, my D-level course for Conjuration is Raise the Dead Theory, and for that one I had to reread a favorite. So I'm currently working on Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. This is a favorite, one I gave 5 stars to a long time ago. I'm buddy reading this and it's going really well. That one along with Braiding Sweetgrass are 2 that I'm in the middle of and pretty close to the end. So hopefully I can finish those courses up very quickly. Finally, and where we're in a bit of trouble, is Spells and Incantations. So I had to get through Q level. My O course is Spell Recoloring, and for that one I have to use a color wheel to pick my book, and I'm not anywhere close to figuring this one out. So once I have used the color wheel to read the book for the O level course, I will go on to Q level, and that is Incantation Echo. So figuring out how to make an echo, find someone else's TBR and pick from theirs. So basically echoing their choices. You pick a book that they have loved. I'm just a little worried about Spells and Incantations because these 2 probably will hold me back more than any others, since I'm mostly done with 2 of the other books, and I don't think Percy Jackson will take very long. that's my update. It's not that bad. It is a bummer that I'm coming into Spring Equinox 2023 with unfinished books. I haven't been the best student in my novice year, but we're going to remedy that. And hopefully my apprentice year will go a lot stronger. I've got my head on straight these days. And I really want to be a good necromancer. Okay, spring into Reading-athon. I have just finished Fruits Basket Volume 7. And the prompts I'm going to use to fulfill this: flower power. Read a book with flowers on the cover. You'll see that there are flowers on that. And flowers back here. Then we've also got Tiptoe Through the Tulips. Read a book with pink and or yellow on the cover. You see there's pink there, a little bit of yellow in the hair, yellow in the tie back here. So I'm counting it. I'm counting it for those two prompts. And if I count the other day as a self-care day, when I went with my aunt and my cousin to get our nails done, then this would give me a bingo. I think I'm gonna count it. First, flower power. And then we had our mani-pedis here. So that gives us one bingo. Yay, one bingo so far. And then we've got Tiptoe Through the Tulips, Fruits Basket Volume 7. Sticker there. Where else could we possibly get another bingo? So Rebecca is gonna work for Buddy Read. And beautiful cover. The month is not over yet, so let's see how much further we can get. Could we get a blackout? I don't think so, because I don't think I'll be able to get to the group read, but I'm gonna see what I can do. So as a dwarf necromancer, it's very important that I keep myself in pretty good shape. So I went and worked out this morning and it was great. I did shoulders and back because, you know, I wanted to feel a little strong in the upper body. So I'm continuing my reread of Rebecca for my Conjuration. I'm at like page 350. I've made it quite far. So I'm getting along with that one and I'm enjoying it. It's interesting because I've read it before, and yet there's a lot of things that I don't quite remember about it. I mean, when I'm reading it, I remember it, but I don't remember all the details of what happens in this story. So that's actually pretty positive because I can enjoy it almost like I'm reading it for the first time. And it's so fun to read this with Kim because I'll finish a chapter, send her a message, and she'll send me a message back, and we're kind of saying a lot of the same things. It's just so well done with the atmosphere. I feel like Rebecca's very well written for the atmosphere. I think a lot of people's complaints is that it's not the most exciting and thrilling story, but because it's a gothic novel, this is exactly what I expect from it. And there is definitely a level of discomfort that's built up by this story, and that's the whole point of gothic novels, is to create this feeling of, you know, you're feeling almost claustrophobic or scared or uncomfortable or nervous, and the setting has a lot to do with how your feelings are changed when it comes to the story. So at least that's what I think of when I think of gothic novels. It's all about the description. It's all about how what is around you makes your brain think that things are worse than they are. It's like a lot more psychological horror in a sense. So I'm just having fun with that one. Doing my 50 pages a day has been a really good way of getting through that one pretty quickly. And I'll have that one done in a day or two. Starting to bud. I can't wait to see what color this one is. And taking all of my geraniums and putting them outside. This little wonky one met a tragic moment last year when it fell off the porch. So it's being okay. It survived through the winter. So I'm hoping I'll replant it at some point and hoping that it'll live a better life. And this one has absolutely hated living indoors. It's hated it. So I'm hoping that being outside will make it a little happier, because from the very first point I put it inside the house, it was not happy and it had this lethargic look to it. So hopefully outdoors in the sun will revitalize this poor little guy. So it's the day before spring equinox, and I have not finished all my courses that I wanted to complete to get my novice standing as a necromancer. And that's okay, because you know what? I'm going to continue these courses, and hopefully I can get them done in the next couple of weeks so that I can actually begin my apprentice level necromancy. The good news, however, is that I have completely finished all my conjuration courses. I have just completed Raise the Dead theory. I now know the theory behind raising the dead. We still haven't learned how to actually raise the dead, which I think is pretty important for a necromancer, but I feel like once the time comes, I will understand a lot about the intention behind raising the dead, or what to expect, or what I should be aware of, or what has happened in the past, or how we came about having this career. I think it was a lot of lecturing, actually. So for that, I had to reread a favorite, Raise the Dead, reread. And this was fantastic. Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I read this back in 2014 is when I looked back and saw. So it was 9 years ago. The good news for me is that I didn't remember all that much until I was actually reading it. Like, I wasn't sitting there thinking, oh, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. As I was reading it, each chapter I got into, I really was able to remember what had happened, but it didn't take away from my enjoyment of this at all. And this is a very classic Gothic novel, and what I really loved, especially towards the end, was how du Maurier was able to set a tone using the pacing of how things were thought in our narrator's head. When she wanted to build the anxiety of the scene, you would have thoughts racing through the narrator's mind, and you'd be reading them in the way that the narrator would probably be thinking them. And so it added tension. It added a lot of feeling that you're actually having as the reader. And I really love that. I think that is so clever, as well as other scenes where the author obviously wanted you to feel different things, or view the feelings of the protagonist as being different. So they would change up the writing style, change up the way that we were viewing things through the protagonist's eyes. And I thought that that was really clever, because then all of a sudden you'd get like this detached feeling, or you'd get this shocked feeling. And it was completely based off how we are in the narrator's head and how the writing is conveying what's going on in there. I don't know how to explain that except by saying that I'm very excited to read more by Daphne du Maurier, because I still love this. I still think it's 5 stars. I will keep it on my shelf because I can easily see rereading this. There's so much more than just the twists and turns in this for me. It's just the way this book makes me feel and the tension it builds, but then also the beauty of it. I love it. I love Rebecca. I still absolutely love it. It's still one of my favorite classics, and I'm looking forward to rereading this in the future. It was also so much fun to buddy read this with Kim from Expedition Through Pages. We just had a blast with this buddy read. So I highly recommend, if you ever want to read it with somebody. It's a lot of fun. So now that Conjuration is completed, and those were courses from the autumn equinox of last year, I need to finish my courses from spring equinox, and I've got 2 of them, Spells and Incantations. As I mentioned, that's Braiding Sweetgrass, and then Lore, which I'm reading The Lightning Thief for. I'd like to complete those as quickly as possible. I'm very close to the end on Braiding Sweetgrass. So Selena and I are here, adventuring in the wilds. How do you feel about your adventure so far?
It's bright out.
And our familiar just pooped, so we better take care of that. Which one do you think you're going to end up starting on?
Well, I kind of like Art of Illusion. Soul Eater is the book I'm going to read. I need to learn to disguise myself in people's dreams.
That'd be cool. Okay, so I thought to celebrate spring, we'd get some ice cream for the
Ice cream.
like to ask the warm weather to start coming, like to influence it.
Ice cream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream.
What'd you get?
I got coconut chocolate.
Was it just coconut chocolate, or there was other things there?
Oh, and almond. Yeah,
Almond.
just almond, coconut, and dark chocolate.
Is it good?
Yeah.
I got, it's called Marshmallow Express, and it's espresso and marshmallow, and
see
it's
the
really
marshmallows.
good. A lot of marshmallows. I'm really happy about that.
Does it taste like espresso?
It's not a strong espresso, but it's just right. Okay, so I did end up finishing Rebecca, which I was going to use for read a book with a beautiful cover and buddy read. Is there any way to get another? No. It doesn't give me another bingo, but at least it gets a few more of these fulfilled. And let me put those stickers on. Okay, so my final results for Spring into Reading-athon are that I got one bingo, and then I got, you know, it's not any more bingos there, but at least I got some others filled out. And I think I did well. Pretty darn well. So before I get too far in The Lightning Thief, I'd like to tell you a little bit about what this is about. I'm sure a lot of people have read this series, but I had never read it before. This is a middle grade fantasy about Greek mythology. So we've got Perseus Jackson, Perseus being a famous mythological half-blood character, meaning half human, half god. And you've got Chiron, who I read about in Song of Achilles and absolutely loved his character. I think I'm going to love his character in this as well. And then you've got Dionysius, who's the other person running this half-blood camp that Percy ends up at because something is hunting him down. And there's like this big battle situation that goes on with a Minotaur, and he ends up at this half-blood camp because it's the only place that he is safe. So apparently, as you get older and you come into your powers as a demigod, monsters start tracking you down and trying to kill you, trying to challenge you. Percy knows nothing about his being a half-blood before this, but things are starting to happen, really big, amazing things are happening, and it leads him to this half-blood camp. So now all of a sudden, he's starting to learn information about who he is. The kids are placed in cabins based on who their god or goddess parent was, and then there's a lot of kids that are undecided, like people don't know who their parent is. And at this point, Percy is undecided. So we're not sure yet which god sired Percy's. So that's kind of where I'm at the moment. He's getting a tour of the campground. Things are happening. He's starting to have a little bit of magical ability. And I am enjoying this. I like the humor in this a lot. I feel like there's definitely some outdated terms and things in here that I'm like, I probably wouldn't have said that, but it was written in 2005. And what I'm really enjoying about this is all the Greek references. Hearing these names that I've heard when I've read Hesiod, when I've read Madeline Miller's Song of Achilles, when I've read bits of Iliad. So I do enjoy putting these pieces of the puzzle together, and it's going to make me want to read more and more Greek mythology and Greek mythology retellings, because now that I can actually fit these pieces together more and get the bigger and broader picture, I think that I'm getting into a mythology kick. Like, I think I'm really starting to enjoy Greek mythology quite a bit, and it's kind of funny because I'm starting to seek these out a little bit more and want to read more of them. So who'd have thought? Who'd have thought it'd happen? Maybe one of these days I actually will tackle Iliad once I've created a broader picture of the Greek mythological world in my mind. But this is going well so far. It's Not as detailed as maybe I would like, but of course it's middle grade, so I can't say anything about that. And the emotions are a little unrealistic. Things have happened where I'm like, they should be feeling a little more emotions about this. I'm taking that stuff with a grain of salt at the moment and seeing how things go, because I have a feeling, based on what I've heard about this series especially, is that it's just going to get better and better and better. So, I'm on page 98. Good morning. It's the third day of Spring Equinox 2023, and something has come to my attention that has brought an opportunity to the forefront that I think I'm going to take advantage of. Now, I would say that I'm an opportunist. I wouldn't say I'm sneaky or anything like that, but I had mentioned that I wasn't going to start any of my apprentice courses until I finished all of my novice courses, officially had my title of being a novice necromancer. But I don't really want to let this opportunity pass me by. So if you saw my plans for this course year, I will be taking shapeshifting and learning the form of wolf, and I was going to use Shiver by Maggie Stiefvater. However, when I was having a conversation with one of my fellow classmates, who's also taking shapeshifting, they pointed out something that I thought was really important for me to see, to notice. And that is that Fool's Errand, which I'm currently reading, has a wolf on the cover of the book. See there, you've got Night Eyes. Can you see it? Night Eyes right there with Fitz. Wouldn't this make sense for me to use this for my shapeshifting course and just sneak into this class a little bit early? I have completed the shapeshifting course I needed to take last year, so at this point my prerequisites are completely fulfilled. So I don't see why I can't start this. I'm going to start this. Well, I've started it, but I'm going to use this. I'm going to take this course, shapeshifting form of a wolf, because we have characters in here that are witted as well. So there's not an actual shapeshifting that's occurring, at least not at this point. It's so close. I think this works out perfectly, and that kind of takes one book off my TBR, one less book that I have to worry about. And this book is huge, so I'm going to be reading it anyways. I might as well be able to use it for one of my courses. That's the plan anyways. I'm doing it. So, I have officially started Spring Equinox 2023. I'm taking shapeshifting, and I cannot wait to learn how to take the form of a wolf. If you know nothing about the Farseer trilogy, which is the first miniseries in this larger series of the Realm of the Elderlings, I can't really tell you too much about it because I don't want to give anything away. However, we have come back to some characters that we have loved from the first series, and now Fitz is in his 30s. And I just got a hint of who's coming soon. And I'm so excited because it's my favorite character, and that's the Fool. And then this chapter's called The Tawny Man, which I just started on. And guess who the Tawny Man is? The Tawny Man is the Fool. So I'm like super excited. I mean, I love Fitz too, don't get me wrong. I mean, he's not my favorite character, but I've been enjoying Fitz throughout the series. And at this point, Fitz hasn't been up to much. He's been keeping things very low key. And I can't wait to see what kind of trouble the Fool brings to him, because the Fool always gets him going, gets him doing things. And I love their dynamic together, I really do. So I can't wait to see what happens there. So I want to thank Emily from Emily Beth Hull, and please go check out her channel. She's a very thoughtful booktuber. I really enjoy her channel. And I'm excited to be taking this course with her, and I'm very happy that she pointed out that there are wolves on this cover, because I didn't even realize. I didn't look close enough.
finished my first book. This is my Art of Illusion book called Soul Eater by Mayne. It's apparently a debut book, and it's a 5 for me. Shelley got this for me, and oh my God, I couldn't put it down. I picked it up and have just been reading constantly. Haven't I, Amy?
Yes. So what kind of book is it?
So it's a male-male romance. Oh no, it's a monster male romance. And apparently she's got more in the series, so I can't wait to read more. It's kind of a apocalyptic story where the earth has kind of been destroyed and monsters have overrun it. This guy joins the military because there's nothing else going for him. The military is out to destroy the monsters. There's a rift in the fabric of the earth that monsters are able to come through. And so he joins the military, kind of finds out right away it's not for him, but he's stuck there. And he's like the lowest level of the military, and there's hundreds of men that go out to fight these monsters, and they're just feed. The military wants the monsters to feed on these guys so that they can attack them when they're busy attacking these people. It was just great.
So what's the next course you're going to be taking?
Well, I want to take astronomy because I have to study the eclipse effect, and the book has to have 2 E's in it. So this is Cause of Death by Patricia Cornwell. I love these series, and I've been wanting to read it, so it was hard to wait until April to read the next in the series. But now that we're in April, I'm going to read this next.
Yay! Morning! So I want to do a little bit of an update for my shapeshifting course, because I read a little bit more of Fool's Errand, and then talk about my lore course, which of course is The Lightning Thief by Riordan. I have a bit of a crush on one of my professors. I love the Fool, and the Fool is back. I was giddy reading the section with the Fool comes in and sees Fitz again, and they greet. It was so wonderful. So that is making me very happy. I can't wait to get into my 25 pages a day, because I'm trying to do 25 pages a day. And then as far as my lore course goes with The Lightning Thief, I have made it to page 200. I'm about 50% of the way through the book, and I'm enjoying it. I'm not as attached to the characters as I would hoped I would be. So at the moment, they're on this journey of sorts, and they're coming up against a lot of these different monsters and things like that, and it's very interesting. The story is fun. I'm not as attached to Percy and Annabeth and the satyr, I don't remember what his name is, as much as I want to be at this point. I love these little found family groups, and I really love seeing them conquer these different things and then also get to know each other better. And I feel like the character development is just, it's very minimal in this particular book. And that's fine. You know, it is a middle grade. This one especially reads like a middle grade. And it's the first in this big, long series, so I'm sure that we get more depth of these different characters as we go along. But at the moment, I feel like it almost moves a little too fast. And there's a lot of action. There's a lot of things happening. That's awesome. There's some really fun humor in here. But I just want to like the characters a little bit more. Just a little bit more. So nothing bad. I'm still enjoying it. But I'm, at this moment, not thinking it's going to be a 5 stars. This week is spring break for my students, for the kids, the 5th graders. And so I'm actually not like going into school on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The only thing I have are my actual courses, which are on Wednesdays. And this term we don't have that much homework. So I've got some reading I need to do for that. Realistically, I have a lot of things I want to do around the house that I just haven't been getting around to. So hopefully we'll get some of that done. And I need to do my taxes. That's coming up. If you haven't done your taxes, make sure you get on it. Actually, this will probably come out after taxes are due. So get those extensions in. Okay, so let's talk about Queens of Geek by Jen Wilde. And this is a YA contemporary that I read because it was the February book for the book club group Autism Reads. This is a book club that's hosted by Christine from An Autistic Reader. She's one of my booktube friends. I will link the Discord and Christine's channel in the description box below, so please go check this out. I joined this group because, well, one, Christine's my friend, and I am very excited for her that she created this book club. But then two, I do want to understand a lot more about autism, especially because I'm becoming a teacher. And it's important to me, it's very important to me, that I know how best to serve all my students. I want to know and understand how our system of schooling, of education, and just the social atmosphere of the world we live in can be different for people who have autism. And so I think that that's an important thing for me to understand, and that's why I really wanted to join this group. And then getting to read a whole bunch of fun new books. So in February, the choice was Queens of Geek, and a lot of people had read it before in their childhood. I have never read it. And it was interesting because it did feel very young at first. And I will say that I enjoyed it a lot, and I learned a lot from it. It was one of those books that really grew on me as it went. So I would give it like a 3.75, possibly a 4-star if I were to reread it and read it as a physical book. The bunnies are out hopping. It's spring. The bunnies are out, and Cece loves the bunnies. She's going crazy. So this story is about a group of friends, a group of 3 friends. We've got Charlie, we've got Tay, and we've got Jamie. So they're going to this big supercon because, for one, Charlie is an influencer and has become really popular after taking part in this movie called The Reckoning or The Rising. The Rising. And this is a zombie movie that Charlie was a part of with her ex-boyfriend, who she met because of this show, but it was a very public relationship and it ended very badly. Then we've got Taylor and Jamie, they're all best friends. And Taylor is a really big fan of this book series called Queen Firestone, and Taylor is the one who has autism. She has depended on this book in a lot of ways to help her with coping with different social situations and some of the things she's had to struggle with. So it's been very important in her life in understanding herself and giving her support. So she's hoping to meet her idol, Skylar, who is the author of this series. And then Jamie is a super comic book nerd, and he moved to Melbourne from the US when he was younger and struggled to fit in socially, but then he ended up making friends with Charlie and Taylor, and they all became the best of friends. So throughout this whole thing, Taylor and Jamie have these feelings towards each other that they've never vocalized or recognized. And then Charlie, she's dealing with the fact that her ex is actually going to be at this big event, and that's going to really make things difficult in the public eye. And then also she's meeting someone she's admired for a while who she could very well be interested in. And so then about 5 chapters in, you start getting a little more of a personal taste of these characters, and especially with Taylor, because she starts having conversations about some of the stems and some of the things that she is dealing with because of all the social expectations that are placed on her at this. And then poor Charlie's just dealing with how social media can be really rough on your self-esteem, and how your subscribers and the different people who support you sometimes don't always support you in the right way, or you base too much of how you feel about yourself on what they're saying about you, which is really rough. And that's something I can definitely commiserate with. I have a small but important following. At the same time, when I put content out, I'm very cognizant of the reception it might get. I think about all the possibilities. I think of the ways I might offend people. I think of so much when I'm making my content, when I'm trying to represent different ideas and thoughts and how it could affect other people. And I know that there's no way I will ever do anything in a perfect sense that will make everybody feel amazing all the time. And that is really stressful, and it's really unfortunate because you want everyone who's enjoying your content to enjoy it completely, and it can be really hard to navigate some of that. I spent a lot of time thinking about comments that people have made that not necessarily even have been really bad, but just I can tell I've affected them in some way, and how can I deal with that? And it does mess with you psychologically a lot. You have to understand that your feelings are not going to represent the feelings of everybody, and you're not going to be the perfect influencer for everybody all the time. And that's really difficult at times. So I commiserated with Charlie quite a bit. As far as Taylor and Jamie went, I really enjoyed seeing their relationship play out and their part of the story. I think even though I could commiserate and understand Charlie's situation more, I actually liked the storyline that included Taylor and Jamie more. So overall, based on what I read in the Discord, a lot of people really liked the representation of Taylor and felt like it was well done, and they could see themselves in some of the things that she has done. Maybe not all the time, but at least at certain points of their life. And I really appreciated hearing that, hearing other people's perspectives, understanding what Taylor was going through and how she coped with certain things, and then also knowing for myself how to support my students if they get into situations where they're not handling things quite as well because they feel overwhelmed or they feel overstimulated. One of the reasons I think that my rating may have suffered a little bit for this particular book was because I listened to it on audiobook, and I wasn't that crazy about the narrators for the audiobook. Their accents were not great, especially when they were doing the American parts, which was funny because I don't think about that usually. I think about it the other way. I think about how Americans try to do accents from other countries and sometimes really botch that. And people are like, oh, it was the worst accent ever. And this situation was reversed, where we had one Australian author whose American accents were so bad. They were so bad. It was very distracting. I didn't think that either narrator was my favorite. They weren't terrible, but I think that I would have enjoyed this book, maybe even got into it more at the beginning if I had read it physically. So I could see, like I said, on a reread, giving this a 4 stars. So I do recommend this if you like YA contemporary that has a really strong focus on fandom and geekdom and, of course, representation for autism. I just think it did a really good job, and it is something that I feel like a lot of younger readers will really love and identify with. And I think that if I had read this when I was younger, I would have even identified with it more. Although I wasn't as much of a geek then. Was I? Not really. I've become more of a geek as I've gotten older. So I don't know. But I still really enjoyed this, and I can't wait to reread it at some point, in the physical form. Okay, so I am editing this, and I'm realizing just how much footage I have for this final Orilium catch-up vlog, where I catch up to the point where I can do Orilium. And I just think that I want to keep these videos to a reasonable length. I'm trying to get, no, I'm not trying to get better at that, but at least at this point with these particular vlogs, I would like to be a little better at that. So I'm going to cut it off here, and then we'll continue my journey through the Orilium, catching up with 2022 in the next vlog. We do get there though. I just want to let you know there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Let me know in the comment section down below if you've read any of the books that I've talked about in this video and what you thought about them, if you enjoyed them, if you weren't as crazy about them. And also click that like button so the algorithm lets other people know about my videos in case they're looking for content like this. And if you've enjoyed this, please subscribe. Follow along on Calla Lily's adventure through Orilium and becoming a necromancer. This is one of the more well thought out, really exciting readathons, I think, that are on BookTube, and as is true for the number of people that are participating in it, it is so much fun. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.